Hindu world was not studied like the Christian world was studied or the Islamic world was studied. These are studied, especially when you think of Christianity. Today you have studies of women's rituals in, say, Mexico or Latin America, Mariology, Marianism in these places, and pilgrimages by disabled persons, and all manner of things that are of great interest. But for the longest time, and it continues, the study of Christian thought, of Christian theology, philosophical theology, mystical theology, the idea that there are categories of thought that beg the big questions in Christianity was the norm. And it became the norm in many other traditions. It's not that their art or music or their gender studies or other things were not studied. It's just that at the center of it, the philosophy, the theology, the thought systems were foundational. In the case of Hindu studies, within the last, I would say, 30 years, it had shifted completely away into the micro study of these various things. This temple does this puja in this way, in this month, and that is my dissertation. Now, is that of interest? That's wonderful. But we cannot be in dialogue with other traditions who are speaking from their situatedness to the big questions of human life. How do we live? Why do we live? How do we exist in relation to all other humans? How do we exist in relation to this world? What makes this world of value? What gives meaning to our lives? If we can't answer this question because we're busy saying, well, Grandma in northern Assam is very busy doing a very beautiful project, for worship during this particular time of year, then we do not have the capacity to be in dialogue with the rest of the world's wisdom traditions. Now, when Grandma is doing this ritual, there's a philosophy of ritual underlying that. That is worth studying. Why is she doing it? How is her life becoming meaningful as a result of it? But then it pulls us again into the deeper questions. So when I formed that Hinduism unit at the American Academy of Religion, what happened is we formed it with the charter to do theology, philosophy, ethics, the big questions. But after serving on the steering committee for 6 years, we had to step down, those of us who founded it, and new people came in, and we went back to ethnography, anthropology, and micro-diversions. At that time, I was a doctoral student. The same aggravation came to my mind. And this time, we founded a learned society, a society called the Dharma Academy of North America. And our entire purpose was to study the big questions across what we termed the Dharma traditions. We therefore established this group of scholars, which now is in the hundreds. We have had well over 1,000 scholars come through our programs, and we hold our annual meeting at the site of the American Academy of Religion, and we study the big questions. And so what you have here, and we also study the emergence of this tradition as an American tradition. We study the emergence of this tradition as a global tradition. So last year we had a conference with large panels on Dharma and artificial intelligence. This year, we'll be doing Dharma and climate catastrophe. Last year, we looked at the first Hindu chaplaincy in America, in North America, and in the world, accredited and in an American university, happens to be the Graduate Theological Union right here in Berkeley. So we have here in front of you, what you're looking at is the launch of this book. And the book is about Hindu spiritual care, chaplaincy, and theory and practice. Hindu chaplains exist. You're looking at one of them, one of the co-editors of the volume, Vineet Chander, and Lucinda Mosher is also an editor of this volume. It's a groundbreaking volume. These are some of the authors in the picture below on the right side. And the reason it's important is that this book comes out just as the Graduate Theological Union right here in Berkeley is about to launch this fall. It's for the first Hindu chaplaincy program. What does that mean? It means an additional level of care. It means that our priests are not burdened by things that they don't have to do, that they're not trained to do, that they don't want to do, because they have their own, they do sacraments, they do pujas, they have a lot on their shoulders. And there are now people who are of the Hindu tradition, who consider themselves Hindu, who are of many different ethnicities, nationalities, but they're all American. And they need a different type of care, a care that understands interreligious communication. Vedanta society is one of the few sampradayas, one of the few denominations, lineages in the Hindu tradition that has recognized that from its very outset, because Thakur Sri Ramakrishna is considered by this tradition to be a Yuga avatar. And we will discuss that more next time. But moving on, so the purpose of this new association that we created in 2002 was constructive theology, ethics, applications from the scholar practitioners, the scholar theologians of the Dharma traditions, particularly Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain. And this now is known as Dharma Studies. And we have engaged the leading edge issues, and we continue to do that. And we are not going to stop pulling the Dharma traditions into the 21st century and exposing their engagement with the here and the now. So the most important aspect of the study of religion, as I found it, is not the study of the spiritual. It is the re-articulation of the spiritual, the re-expression of the spiritual in engagement with this time and this place in this moment. So that is the beauty of theology. So what is theology? What is this? It is the work that helps an ancient stream of spiritual heritage flow powerfully into the present moment. It refreshes and revitalizes a spiritual heritage. Theology doesn't look at the ashes, but instead it makes the fire burn brightly again. Theology allows us to bring the spiritual principles and insights into engagement with the major concerns of our time. Theology is not a game. It is based on authority. It's based on authority that comes from deep study and initiation into a spiritual heritage tradition, a religion, a lineage. What current concerns can theology, particularly what is known as constructive theology, actively engage and address? Well, as you can see, just about anything. from spiritual care to trauma to disability to social well-being to medical ethics to ecology to transformation of consciousness to the survival of indigenous peoples. There is nothing that is within the realm of human thought and human experience and planetary experience that theology does not actively engage and address. So we begin with sacred texts. That's what theology begins with. It begins with the testimony of the wise. It begins with a stream of insights that is developed over time and the witnessing of that over time. And that in the Hindu world is called Shabda Pramana. That is where we begin. But as the arrow shows you, it is not where we end. We take that into our being. We are informed by that. We're inspired by that to do what is needed in the world.